This is Paul Mascetta. And if you've ever been in a situation more than one time where you can't seem to influence, persuade, sell, communicate effectively with someone, like maybe there's just a barrier that exists between you and that person, then sit down and stay tuned, because in this video, I'm going to reveal what is arguably the most important element that you need in every single persuasive situation. So what is this magic ingredient that I want to talk about? It's called rapport. And if you don't know what rapport is, it is the central pillar of all influence, persuasion, and human communication. It is basically like a link or a connection that you have with the person or the people that you're attempting to influence or persuade. And the reason why I say that it's arguably the most important element is because, in my opinion and in my experience, without rapport, it's nearly impossible to influence or persuade anyone, with the exception of the situation where you have authority. Authority is probably the only thing that's more powerful than rapport. But when you have authority and rapport together, you are basically unstoppable. Now, in this video series, we're going to cover rapport. Authority will be a video series in and of itself. But for now, let's talk about a few key things that you need to know about rapport. So the first thing is that it can't be turned on and off like a faucet. It can be challenging and time-consuming to build and to create, but once it's there, it flows naturally. So if you think about somebody that you have rapport with, somebody that you have a really good relationship with, somebody that you get a good vibe from when you're in their presence, think about that person and think about the feeling that you get when you're around them. Now, conversely, think about somebody that you don't have such good rapport with. Maybe you have a little bit of a turbulent relationship with them, or you get a bad vibe when you're around them. Think about the feeling that you get inside when you're with that person. Now, do you think that it's realistic that you could jump back and forth between those two feelings and experiences over and over again when you're having an interaction with someone, where one minute you feel connected and you feel good, and the next minute you feel disconnected and you don't feel good, and then you go back to feeling connected and not feeling good? It doesn't happen that way. You either feel connected to somebody or you don't. Now, it is possible that you could feel connected to somebody and then all of a sudden something happens and you lose the connection, but it's very unlikely that you're then going to go back to feeling connected to them and then back to feeling disconnected from them. It doesn't just go on and off like a switch. Another thing that you should know about rapport is that it doesn't mean friendship. And this is something that I see a lot of people screw up. They think that rapport and friendship are two different things. Now, of course, you can have rapport with people that you're friends with, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to be friends with the person. So, for example, let's say you have a boss that you want to build rapport with, but this person is a company guy, very professional, believes heavily in chain of command and keeping the communication and the level of interaction on a very professional level. Well, if you go try to become that person's friend, you're actually going to destroy any kind of rapport that you want to create with them, because you're not demonstrating that you value a professional relationship. Instead, if you avoid trying to be their friend and keep things on a professional level at all times, that person is going to feel like they can identify with you more, that you have more in common, and therefore you will then begin to create rapport with them. Now, again, I want you to think again of two people, one person that you have rapport with and one person that you don't have rapport with. Well, one of the key things, and I talk about this all the time, that separates poor communicators from average communicators from master communicators is this. Poor communicators can't create rapport with anybody. All they care about is their own thoughts, their own opinions, their own points of view. They don't care about other people's interests. Average communicators are capable of creating rapport with people that they're already friends with, or people that they seem to get along with. Master communicators can create rapport with just about anyone, and therein lies the difference. The average communicator, yeah, they can create rapport and they can influence and persuade people that they kind of already have rapport with, people that rapport kind of just happened naturally between them, either because they know them for a long time, they're a close friend, they're a family member, but that's easy. That's easy to do. I mean, it's certainly better than what poor communicators do, because poor communicators can't even influence or persuade people that they are close to because they just don't know how to communicate to them. But the master communicator can find someone, can identify someone that maybe they don't have such a good relationship with, or a resistant person, and utilize techniques and strategies to then create with rapport with even the most resistant types of people. And a lot of this has to do with perceptual positions. There are basically 3 perceptual positions. Perceptual position 1 is what the poor communicator has. They can only focus on their position, their map of the world, their map of the territory. The second position is where you're able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and you're able to see both their position and your position. That's what average communicators do. Now, the master communicator is actually able to step into the third position, which is almost a detached view. It's like an observer that can look and see the interaction between two people, including themselves. They're one of those people, but they see it from a detached view. And when you can do that, you can really begin to see opportunities and maybe things that you didn't pick up on before about how you can develop rapport with these people. Now, speaking of developing rapport, there's also times where you want to break rapport. And again, this is another thing that separates average communicators from master communicators. So average communicators can create rapport. They think rapport is a good thing. They feel good about themselves because they can create it and maintain it with people, but they don't understand how to break it. And again, a master communicator understands how to elegantly break rapport. So why would you want to break rapport? Well, let's say you're working on a deadline project in your office and the guy that comes in to water the plants is striking up a conversation with you and taking up your time. You got to break the rapport with this guy. Or let's say you're at a conference where your job is to acquire leads and somebody that has absolutely no possible way of buying what you have to offer is taking up your time, asking you a whole bunch of questions. They are not qualified. It's not to say that they're not important as a person, but they're not important to the context of why you're there. You need to cut them off. So how do you do that? You do that by simply breaking the rapport that you have with them through body language. You give them signals that they will subconsciously be able to pick up on that demonstrate that you are not interested in conversing with them or interacting with them any longer. And this really goes back to the Morabian research. So Professor Morabian of UCLA conducted studies where he found that really only 7% of the way that we communicate is done verbally, and the majority of the signals that we pick up on take place on non-verbal levels through things like body language, posture, and gestures, and things like that. And I agree with that. I do agree that the majority of the way we perceive people happens on non-verbal levels, but here's the thing. The majority of the way we actually communicate happens on verbal levels. So let me give you an example. You go into a job interview. Yes, you are going to give off signals through your body language and your gestures to the person that's interviewing you, but the bottom line is that the majority of that interaction is going to involve speaking. If you just sat down in the chair and didn't say anything and expected that person to know about you and decide if you're qualified for the job based on your body language, that person would think you're insane. Same thing happens if you go to try to pick someone up on a date. Yes, they're going to read signals from your body language, but if you don't open up the line of communication and start speaking to that person, they're going to think you're crazy and not give you the time of day. And so it's important to understand how important body language is, and that leads us to really understanding how to switch positions and put yourself in the other person's shoes. And you do this by paying close attention to their interests and gathering intelligence about them. I teach people a 5-step method for influencing people called the GRIPS method. Gather intelligence, reduce resistance, initiate control, position yourself, and then sustain your position. Well, the very first step in the process is to gather intelligence, which simply means just to learn a little bit more about the person that you want to influence or persuade. Pay attention to key phrases that they use. And the reason why this is powerful is because you can use things like stories, metaphors, and analogies to communicate in a more effective way with them. And average communicators know how to do that. Master communicators know how to tailor those stories, analogies, and metaphors using the same type of verbiage that the subject or the target is using to make the story, the analogy, or the metaphor that much more powerful. So again, pay close attention to what people say in key phrases that they use, and above all, pace, and then attempt to lead the person. I'll cover pacing and leading in another video, but really what you want to think about pacing as is mirroring and matching the gestures, the body language, the breathing of the other person so that you're in unison with them. But the key is to do it at the same pace as them. If you think about one of those moving escalator floor things in the airport, we've all seen them before, right? They look like escalators, but they don't have stairs. It's just like a moving floor. If you just try to jump on that thing without first catching up to it, the likelihood is that you're going to fall. You have to first adjust your speed and pace yourself to get on that thing so that you don't fall. Well, the same thing is true when you're pacing other people. You have to pace at the same level as them. So again, match their tone of voice, match their breathing level, match their gestures and their body language, and you will begin to create rapport with them. Want to learn 10 hypnotic language patterns that you can use to create rapport with just about anyone? Click that link right there and download the Rapport Patterns cheat sheets absolutely free. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and like the video.